Welcome, everybody, to another edition of the GioMoShow, your home for all Golden Grizzlies basketball. My name is Giovanni Moceri. I am your host, and be sure to rate, review, and subscribe to not miss one bit of the Golden Grizzlies action as we're getting pretty close to the Horizon League tournament and that final regular season game against Detroit Mercy in the arena. So if you subscribe, you won't miss one bit of that action. You can follow us on Instagram as well at the GioMo Show. You'll get my previews and my post-game reactions to every one of the Golden Grizzlies games, and that's the only place you'll find it. Also here on YouTube as far as the shorts are concerned. So be sure to follow us however way you can. Spotify especially, because it's still yelling at me that I should have more followers. So be sure to support all the ways that you can. So I just got done watching the Robert Morris game, and we'll get to that at the end of this episode here. We'll go in chronological order as I already pre-recorded the reaction to and breakdown of the Youngstown State game. But overall, this was just a very rough week for the Golden Grizzlies, now losing 3 in a row and making our pursuit of a regular season championship and a number 1 seed a little bit dicier. And when you balance that between all you really need is a top 5 seed to get the home game and stay out of the play-in game of the new Horizon League tournament format, then maybe it's not a huge deal. But damn, this one just hurt this week. But we'll break it down all throughout the episode here. So we'll kick it over to myself for the Youngstown State segment. And right after recording this intro, I'm going to be getting to the Robert Morris one. So we'll see you guys in a bit. So the Golden Grizzlies lose a tough one at home against Youngstown State. Final score 86-82. And this one was frustrating. This one was absolutely a game that Oakland could have won, but by errors on their side, by a lack of energy, attention to detail, and ability to adjust, we lose to the second worst team in the league. We give them their 6th win, and we lose another opportunity to jump Wright State in the regular season standings, while we got other teams up on our heels that are looking to take our spot in second place, and they want that first place spot too. So this one was definitely a painful one for Oakland. And as far as what they didn't adjust to and what they could have, we'll start with, honestly, we can kind of go by the 2 leading scorers on Youngstown State. We'll start with the Cam Polak problem, where throughout the game, it was very clear that he had the hot hand. I think he made the first 2 3-pointers of the game, and that gave Youngstown State a very early lead. He would finish 7 of 14 with 26 points, 7 of 14 from deep, by the way. He was 8 of 16, and that 2-point field goal was an and one, of course. He caught Baru sleeping, in his words, and that got him 26 points, and he was 3 of 3 from the free throw line. We'll get to free throws in a little bit, but the Cam Polak problem was identified early and was not acted upon in order to switch it. Now, it is a known and long-standing issue of Campy's defense and his zone that the corner 3 is usually pretty open. Now, I'm starting to learn the zone a little bit, and I learned that the guy at the hoop is responsible for dashing from the hoop to the corner and try and contest the shot. And for whatever reason, they just kept being wide open, and maybe I'm oversimplifying the rules of the zone. I don't know him. I didn't, I wasn't a manager. I didn't learn the rules that way. But either way, he was just wide open in the corner, and he was sinking them. And it was sinking the ship of Oakland's chance to win at home in front of a packed crowd. So that was just something that wasn't adjusted to all game, and he just kept doing the thing from deep. It reminded me of Solomon Callahan from Wright State. He did business like that to us often this season. But despite that, Youngstown State only shot 34% from deep. They took a lot and made a lot. There were 12 of 35 for that 34%. Oakland did have a good 3-point shooting game themselves, which is a little bit uncharacteristic. We were 10 of 25, but still, it's those 2 3-pointers along with the free throw disparity. Again, we'll talk about it in a little bit. Those were enough to make the difference, big time. So that's a Polak problem, or Pollock problem. I don't know how to pronounce his name. Bryson Dawkins was another problem. You want to talk about somebody who was violent at the rim? I think they needed to tighten the screws in the arena for the baskets after his dunking performance. I think he got like 7 or 8 of them. And a lot of them were kind of wide open, cutting from the baseline, like a backdoor cut kind of deal, and it just kept happening and happening and happening. Every time Oakland made a mistake, it seemed to have been their first option to go to because, when you slam it on an away court, that means something a little bit extra than it does, in normal circumstances. You're silencing a very active Greek night, fraternity, sorority filled crowd in the arena by doing that. He would end up with 23 points, 9 rebounds, 3 offensive rebounds too, and was 10 of 15 from the floor. And again, most of those were dunks at the rim. Chris Carroll wasn't necessarily like a distinct issue, but he got to the line plenty. He was 9 of 9 with a 19-point double-double, 19 and 10, 5 assists. Chris Carroll is a known star in this league, so that wasn't surprising to see him get his. But basically, it was a three-headed monster for Youngstown State that got things done. It kind of exposed Oakland's inability to adjust, at least in this game. On the rebounding side of things, this also kind of goes towards like a lack of effort kind of thing. And I'm not saying this for me personally being harsh. I mean, I agree with it, but this was the sentiment and what was said at the post-game press conference between Campy, Mike Hogue, and Baru about this game. Now, 36 of 26 in rebounding. I get it. We don't have Isaac Garrett, who is our leading rebounder, but it felt like an effort thing. It was something where like Youngstown State, like when they got the confidence that they saw how it was affecting us. I didn't like the body language in this game, but when Youngstown State saw that was the kind of body language that we were giving, it seemed to energize them. They were the ones cheering on their own bench at times, while Oakland was just kind of like, during a timeout, they would just kind of walk back. They had this kind of look in their eyes like, uh-oh. I seriously didn't like the body language in that. And there was a few moments between Coach and Zaire where Zaire kind of like, blew him off or like, didn't seem to be taking in the advice very well. And it kind of came to IG and Smitty at the huddle to kind of get him back into things. But it's just vibes were just bad in this game. And I see the rebounding as a reflection of that. Now we'll get to the free throw side of things. Typically, and we've mentioned it throughout the season, and coaches mentioned it throughout the season, that the goal is to make more free throws in your opponent's attempt. You would hope that at home you would be able to accomplish that. That was not the case at all. Oakland in the first half had 2 attempts at the free throw line. They didn't make any of them either. 0 of 2, a goose egg for much of the game, and they would get like one more chance at it. I think it was someone had an and one to make it 3 attempts, and we didn't make that one either. So we were 0 of 3 from the free throw line at home for much of the game. The final stats are saying that we were 10 of 15, which also missing 5 free throws at home in and of itself. No good. But when you're 0 of 3 for much of the game, like most of them came in the last couple of minutes of the game. Like, I mean, it wasn't garbage time. It was still close, but it's like that's when the things kind of they started to give it to us a little bit, but throughout the game, they weren't calling nothing. And they were calling a little bit more for Youngstown State, whatever. I didn't necessarily watch the film in order to determine whether it was true or right for the refs to do that or not, but whatever, they were at least consistent in that they were not calling a bunch of things in this game. And Campy said that they weren't able to adjust to that either. They weren't able to just acknowledge that, hey, you're not going to get it tonight. Instead, they were just kind of staying frustrated at it and still like wanting and complaining for calls, which I understand is natural. But in a game like that, you need to get over it, really. So that part of it was disappointing, and that also kind of feeds into the body language kind of thing that I was talking about earlier. And finally, with this game, I got a couple more points here before we get to the next game of Robert Morris that we'll cover. We're recording this Saturday, so we'll record the Robert Morris one in a little bit. But this was another chance for Wright State. They lost in the same time as we did, again, for the third time, and Oakland now blows a third chance to jump Wright State in the standings. We're towards the part of the season, and we've been at second place for long enough, within a game for long enough, to where a regular season championship should be a worthy pursuit. It's not, yes, it's all about March, but you are that close to getting your team another ring. That is huge. That is something that should be, kind of in your mind too, as a goal, before the tournament starts. And for whatever reason, every opportunity they get to jump the team who has beaten them twice, who you don't have a tiebreaker against, you need to jump them. We just can't seem to get it done. Detroit would beat Wright State on the road for the first time since 2013, and we were unable to do that ourselves. So that's kind of a neat factoid as well, but it's just so frustrating. It always comes when Wright State loses. And now what that does with three chances, with basically three losses at the top, that brings everybody else a lot closer to us. I'll pull up the standings for you guys. And I know this will be updated after the Robert Morris game, but just for now, I think the point will still stand either way, that you got Green Bay, you got Robert Morris, and one of Purdue Fort Wayne or Detroit Mercy, who are hot enough and in the hunt where they can get your second place spot. Now, Purdue Fort Wayne, maybe not. They've lost 3 in a row. Things aren't looking too good for them. But you got Detroit Mercy, who's 8-7. They're coming off that win against Wright State. You got Robert Morris, who's on a 3-game win streak. And you got Green Bay, who's on a 3-game win streak. Green Bay is a half game behind you at 10-6. Robert Morris, a game and a half behind you at 9-7. Those are good teams. Those are teams that are dangerous. And we're going to be playing Robert Morris on the road next, as I mentioned before. Next weekend, we will be hosting Green Bay. That's going to be huge. So now you've put yourself in a position by losing to both IU Indy and Youngstown State, some of the worst teams in the league. You've now put yourself in a position to where you can be jumped by these teams who got hot at the right time. Oakland is just, for whatever reason, it's just, yes, there's no days off in the Horizon League, but if you're this good of a team, that shouldn't matter. Now, my final point will be this one was without Isaac Garrett. Yes, that is a big deal. And yes, it was talked about at the press conference. I asked Mike about it as far as, how difficult is it to be missing such a key piece? And, it's obvious. I mean, I just kind of wanted to hear him kind of go through it. I pretty much knew the answer, but it's always good to hear from the players themselves. But we thought he was going to play. We thought he was going to play today. Campy thought he was going to play today. But ankle sprains for big dudes are a big deal. And they are extremely painful. So they thought he was going to play today, and now Campy is hopeful. It's most likely he's not going to be playing against Robert Morris. We'll see in the next segment if I'm correct. But hopefully he'll be back for the weekend home games against the Wisconsin teams. But Campy also emphasized, and it kind of makes me nervous that we're going to be missing him for the rest of the regular season because, or at least against the Detroit, the Detroit game at the end of the regular season on the 28th. I'm a little bit worried that this is something that they're just going to be super patient about and make sure that he's completely healthy for the tournament. Campy said, quote, "We need him completely healthy as we get into March." That's understandable. I get it. And it really is just about being a top 5 seed because that's, obviously you stay out of the play-in game and you get the home game before going to Indianapolis. So it's really just about getting a home game. But even then, we don't seem to play well at home anymore. I don't get it. That part is also weird, but they might, and this is just my own speculation, they might hold him back until the 28th against Detroit Mercy. That would suck because he's your leading rebounder, and obviously in this game, and remember the last time we played Youngstown State, that was a monster IG game. He had 26 and 14 in that game, part of that 13-point comeback we had against them. So that was very apparent in this game too, and it puts Oakland in a very short rotation, and puts them in the bind. So to wrap up the segment here, a couple of box score highlights. Mike Hogue leading the Golden Grizzlies, 21 points and 6 rebounds. He was 10 of 13 from the field, and then 2 of those misses were those early bunny hops, so he played very good the rest of the way down. You had Baru, who had 16, Baru had 15 points, 7 rebounds, and 4 assists. He was 7 of 10 from the floor himself. Brett White, I didn't even notice this when the game was going on. He was 5 of 11 from deep as Oakland shot 10 of 25, good for 40% as a team from 3, which also made this frustrating because we had a good shooting night. We were 53, 40, and 67 from the line. But finally for that, Brody Robinson, after not getting to the line all game long, makes his last 5 free throws towards the end of the game. He would end up with 16 points, 5 rebounds, and 8 assists, and 4 turnovers. Oakland only had 15 assists on 31 baskets made, 13 turnovers. Not good numbers and also bad numbers at the same time, kind of reflective of how the offense struggled in this game as far as not having many assists. And for reference, Youngstown State had 23 assists on 28 field goals made. They were cruising. So that puts Oakland now at 10 and 5. Still holding on to second place in the Horizon League, but like I mentioned before, we got teams hunting for that spot. So we'll see when we get to the Robert Morris game on the road if Oakland is still in the hunt for that regular season championship, or are we just going to have to settle for a top 5 seed as we go into the tournament. So we'll kick it over to myself in the future when we talk about Robert Morris. And sadly, no, I do not have good news to report on the Golden Grizzlies on the road against Robert Morris. An ugly final score of 93-69. It kind of when you look back at the previous game, kind of payback as we now even the score between the two of us in the regular season. Andy Toole and the Robert Morris Colonials are always a tough matchup. I mean, remember, they are the reigning Horizon League champions. They are a good team, and they're hot, and they're getting hot at the right time. Oakland was hot previously and not anymore, so maybe it was the wrong time to get hot for Oakland, but this one just hurts. This one is that was a very difficult watch. And I'll start it with literally the difficult watch because the audio was off on the TV, and that made it itself difficult to watch. And then sometimes I like to sync it up with the radio, but the radio was ahead of the TV, so there's nothing I could do to get the radio behind and sync everything. So basically, I had the score up that was on a different timeline as the radio audio that was on a different timeline as the TV audio that was on a different time than the TV video. Watching the game was literally a struggle, let alone what was actually being played. So I got very frustrated with the Robert Morris broadcast, even though the score bug looked sweet. That aside, it was a close game throughout, but you could tell that there were some cracks in the Oakland armor, the same issues that have been plaguing us since IG has been out. And even with all this being said, IG was back. We had him, even if it was at a small percentage of, he's coming off of an injury. He hasn't practiced much at all just because it's a sprained ankle. You can't really practice basketball on a sprained ankle. So yeah, you're not going to get prime IG. That's fine. I understand that. But still, besides him, you got Baru and you got Hogue who could not pick up the slack. Because I'll show you what kind of slack that needed to be picked up. If you combine both Isaac Garrett and Baru as far as field goal percentage, remember, these are big guys. They shoot close to the basket. These should be high percentage shots. Baru was like top 3 in field goal percentage last year. But combined, they were 3 of 21 from the floor. Now they got a combined 12 rebounds. But that is awful. And it's felt like that for the past few games here, where for whatever reason, it also happened at that Youngstown State game, where at the beginning of the game, it was bunny hops in front of the basket. They tried to get those going early. And we missed those. We missed the easy ones with the fresh legs and everything. And that continued to plague us throughout the game. You can't miss shots like that. Because for much of the game, it was within a couple of possessions, and those 2 baskets could have made the difference. It could have been the difference between us chasing Robert Morris throughout the entire game and us trying to keep them at arm's distance with the lead. That's a totally different vibe. And we still, for whatever reason, struggle from close to the basket. That was super frustrating. And Hogue got in foul trouble pretty early, so he didn't even get that many chances and would end up fouling out with 5 minutes left. So we're just unable to get the easy baskets on the inside. And when that doesn't happen, you don't get the opportunities from the outside. And we didn't even take that many threes anyway. Our attempts were like, I think, in the low tens, we took 16 threes. And yeah, we're not going to take a bunch in general, but when you're 5 of 16, that's like 31.3%. That ain't that good because maybe because you're not making them on the inside, so they could guard it on the outside with less punishment for it. It's just the whole offense just seems to be falling apart, and that's super frustrating for me. We used to see we have 12 assists in total in this game. We see most of that come from Brody Robinson alone, but not the case. He did have 7 assists, but we're used to seeing assists closer to the 20s here. And for the past few games, we ain't got nothing for assists, which is a sign that the offense is not working at its prime efficiency that it has been throughout the season. That is just super frustrating. That's one part of it. And then you get to the rebounding and points in the paint side of things, kind of related to what I was talking about earlier. But as far as the stats go, we were out-rebounded 40-31. Robert Morris is a fantastic rebounding team, yes. But that's not the way Oakland plays. We got a front court that's the best in the league. It should be, and we shouldn't be getting out-rebounded like that. That's hard to see. Points in the paint. This is where we should especially shine against every team in the Horizon League, is points in the paint. Not this one. Robert Morris was the one that shined. 50 to 30 points in the paint advantage to the Colonials. That hurts too. And overall, it's just, when you get down to the last 10 minutes of it, the game was within a couple of possessions, and then what can't be described as, what Neil Rule described as, and what I will describe as the moment the game completely fell apart was this weird, horrible three-point shot that banked in. And it kind of put a stop to a little bit of a run Oakland was on, and just the wheels came off. Lost cabin pressure. The dam broke. And it was just an avalanche. 17-4 Robert Morris run. In the final 10 minutes, when you expand it overall, 34-17, Robert Morris outscored us in the final 10 minutes of play. Just disaster. Absolute disaster. Horrible way to close out a game. And it's just Oakland was unable to get out of that mud. They were just stuck. They were shell-shocked. They could not recover. And therefore, we lose 93-69. And now the standings get a lot closer. And now we are in a position where I'm honestly a little bit nervous of, are we going to get that Horizon League tournament home game? Because I'll refresh you guys' memory. The format this year is there's a play-in game for the 10 and 11 seed, and then top 5 seeds get a home game and they host, everybody else. So it's not, you don't really get a bye like you did last year if you're a top 4. You get a home game, and if you win that, you go to Indy. That's kind of the format. So all that to say, it is important to get top 5 so that you get that home tournament game. But now, Oakland is 10-6. Luckily, Green Bay just lost. That happened a few seconds ago. That is a huge break for Oakland to stay in there. But now it's Green Bay at 10-6, Oakland at 10-6, Robert Morris at 10-7. Behind that is Purdue, Fort Wayne, and Detroit Mercy at 9-7. These are really close, guys. That 5th seed is going to get crowded. And if Oakland keeps playing this way, I'm afraid they're going to fall into that mud and have to be on the road for the tournament. This cannot continue. We host the Wisconsin teams this weekend. And I'm pointing out Green Bay especially. That's huge. Those are huge games. You pretty much got to win both of them at this point if you want to secure that home game. And I'll say this as well. This kind of piggybacks off the Youngstown State game. Do we really want a home game? We don't play well at home anymore. So do we really want that home playoff game? Like, at this point, it's kind of a toss-up of whether it's going to help us or not. I know you guys can tell I'm a lot more animated today than I usually am, but just seeing 3 losses in a row like this against these teams, and to also hear Campy just be, yeah, obviously he's upset, but like almost like the post-game radio broadcast, it sounded defeated. It sounded like tail between the legs, and I don't want to hear my coach do that. I found it concerning that it was just kind of defeatist. Oh, shucks, but we played well. I didn't feel any fire for it. And I'll throw my hands up and say, maybe he doesn't bring that fire to the microphone anymore. I don't know what happens in the locker room. But for me as a fan, I saw that and I heard that and I was like, oh no, this might break him. Overreaction, sure, but that was the vibe I got. And it's the vibe I'm getting from this team after 3 losses in a row. And I think, I'm dropping the pursuit of a regular season championship at this point, because Wright State won. They're 12-4. They're plenty far ahead of us. They got the tiebreaker against us 2-0 in the regular season in our 2 matchups, 2 games ahead. Like, that ain't happening no more. I guess we're just jockeying for position within the 2 through 5 seeds and trying to hope for a good matchup. But when you look at the teams that we could potentially play in that said round of the tournament, well, the play-in game could be between either Cleveland State and Milwaukee and IU Indy. You lost to 2 or 3 of those teams. You lost to Cleveland State and IU Indy. Youngstown State you also lost to, who could also drop down into that playing game. Otherwise, you got Fort Wayne, Mercy, Northern Kentucky as like the lower seeds that you could potentially see. Like at this point, I don't know, man. I'm losing confidence, man. The ship is taking on water, and I'm frustrated. And I don't usually do my shows this way, but that's just how it's coming out, and that's how I'm feeling right now. And I don't know if it's cathartic for you fans listening, or if you guys are similarly concerned. And if it's gotten me talking like this, then it must be really bad, right? We'll see how it ends up. But these next home games are critical. Green Bay and Milwaukee on February 20th and 22nd, Friday and Sunday. We go on the road to IU Indy on the 25th, and then we come back home against Detroit Mercy on the 28th. That's the rest of the regular season. Then it's tournament time. So Oakland has to fix this. I think the biggest thing they have to fix is just make your easy baskets within 5 feet. Make your paint points, and then I think the rest will kind of figure itself out. Oakland does not seem to be able to play from behind. I think they need to build the lead early and at least be in contention, because there's been a lot of games where if we're behind, we stay behind. So that's going to leave us for the GioMoShow here. I feel like such a downer, but man, this team's got me down. So anyway, that's going to wrap it up for here on the GioMoShow. Appreciate you guys listening. Next week, we'll have the Wisconsin games to cover. And, like I mentioned, we're getting closer and closer to tournament time. So be sure to rate, review, and subscribe so you don't miss any of it. Follow the Instagram so you don't miss any of my immediate reactions to all of the games and my coverage of the Horizon League tournament in one way or another. Still looking to see if I could get down there to Indy. But my intention is to do so. You guys will have all the updates you need on that via Instagram as well as Twitter at GioMoShow, WXOU. Thank you guys so much for listening. Go Golden Grizzlies. My name is Giovanni Moceri for the GioMoShow. We'll see you next time.